right, guys. Hello, hello. It's a little brighter here. There we go. All right, if you're here, welcome in. Welcome to the In Session Show. My name is Josh Boyd, and I am a licensed professional counselor. I was also a nerd who loves streaming and tech and videos and things like that. So it's just a way for me to combine all of that into about an hour of what is, I think similar to a therapy session where we talk about various topics happening in the world, but also, how that affects us. We talk about strategies on how to work through mental health and also just provide some mental health education. There's a lot of still stigma out there and misinformation and things like that. And the show is just to have an open conversation that feels a lot like a therapy session on mental health. So 1 second while I double check, because last week we had a lot of technical difficulties, so I want to make sure that we're good here before I go too far. So looks good. If anyone's in chat, let me know if anything seems off, or if you can hear me fine, you see me fine, all those good things. But I think we are looking good. Needs to be all right on my end. So cool. If you're joining us, welcome in. I got a couple fun topics planned for you today. So I think we should just jump right to it. So if you've been watching the news at all, you're familiar with Kanye West, yay, and everything he's been doing and saying lately. It's very clear that he holds some very strong anti-Semitic beliefs. It's very clear that there's a lot of racist ideals he has and holds to, and is sharing very openly right now. Recently, I think it was over the weekend, or at the end of the week, he was on a show with Alex Jones, who has his own reputation. And they started talking about everything going on. And even in this one, Alex Jones was the one that was trying to keep things smooth, which tells you something. And Ye went as far as saying that he likes Hitler, quote unquote. If we were to give him the benefit of the doubt, I think what he's trying to say is like, love everybody, and everyone has problems, and et cetera, and we should always look at also the redeeming quality of somebody. Again, if we're giving the benefit of the doubt, he's just saying we should also have love for part of Hitler. But I don't think that's what he's saying. I don't think that is. Hold on, make sure this is right. Yeah, okay, good. All right. Sorry. I don't think that's what he means. I think he likes Hitler, and actually, he even in the show, Kanye denied the Holocaust, and again, I can go forever on all the things he's done and said lately that are problematic. Again, it seems like he's actually defending Hitler, and that's an important thing to do. His comments are leading to other people coming out and saying things too. There's been some vandalism happening. And we all know the danger of these kind of things. Turn it up there. There we go. We all know the danger of people sharing and shouting out their just hateful beliefs. It brings a lot of people out of the woodwork and gives them permission to do the same. But I want to focus today mostly on the mental health side of this. I don't know, but I do think it's worth saying though that I don't think people like Kanye he's running for president. I don't think he'll be able to get that. I think there's too many of us and too many good people that know he's wrong, know that we don't have that kind of hate in our hearts, and we can recognize it and see it and defend against it. I think it is understandable to worry about some of the things that can come with this, worry about violence against, people that are Jewish, people that we know and love. And I encourage you to stand with those people. I think back to, things when like George Floyd was happening, right? And a lot of people educated themselves and started to learn and understand more about racism and the experience of being Black in America, or just being a racial minority at all in America. And it led to some really good things. Obviously, it led to a lot of terrible things as well, but I think good won out in that case. And I think it's important that we educate ourselves on anti-Semitism, on Jewish culture, and what it's like to be Jewish in America, and some of the things that they face as well. But just to move on though, I want to get into the mental health side of all this. So a common thing people are saying, I always chapstick way too much. Put that away. Is that, Kanye's crazy. He's saying all this stuff because he's bipolar. He's saying all this stuff because he is mentally ill and needs help. And while some of those things may be true, bipolar has nothing to do with being anti-Semitic or racist or anything else. And that is very important that people understand. I won't go into the full explanation of bipolar and what it can look like. That would take, it deserves a whole episode, really. So the short version is that on the extreme ends, there's a manic episode and depressive episode, right? And depressive episode is kind of, they could bring out some of the worst parts of depression, and it's really hard to in that state. It's very hard to see out of it. Whatever state you're in can feel extremely real, right? So on the manic side, that is, you might act recklessly. There's low or no impulse control. Someone that is manic can feel invincible, that they can't fail, that there's nothing that can go wrong for them, and they can engage in risky behaviors. Some people say it as like they believe they're a superhero. And then on the depressive side, it's like believing that they're the worst monster in the world, and the thoughts that can go from there. But yeah, bipolar is these two poles, and one is manic, one is depressive. And on the topic of racism or anti-Semitism and bipolar, an article said it well. It's that mental illness can remove someone's filter, but not cause them to be racist. So what that means is, I kind of mentioned George Floyd already, right? During that time, based on like all the stuff I was seeing on social media, there's some people I stopped interacting with. There's some people that went just way too hard on cops and law enforcement, saying cops deserve to die, right? That all cops are bad and those kind of things. And then there's people on the other side saying that basically Black people like that, like George Floyd, deserve to die. There's nothing wrong with them dying, right, or being killed. And both sides, I brought out extremes on both sides, really, but that's not to say that all sides are equal. Not at all. I'm not saying that. But there's definitely some just hate, and that was a problem. I would say, we could say there's more hate on one side than the other, but that's not the point of this. But all that happening, it didn't make people change their beliefs. It just gave people a platform to openly say their beliefs. And in that same vein, when someone is in a manic state or dealing with any other, not any other, but a lot of different mental health conditions, it can remove the filter, lower the filter, to where people will openly say what they actually think and believe in, without seeing any problem with it, or without, caring if there's a problem with it. And yeah, so if someone is in a manic episode, like maybe Kanye is, we don't know for sure. A lot of the signs point to him being in some kind of manic state. Or maybe this is just him being him, either way. the things he believes, the things he is sharing, the things he is saying is not because of bipolar. The reason he believes those things is not because of bipolar. Bipolar could be why he is sharing them so publicly and openly, but it's not caused by it. And I think that's something that a lot of people think, is that when someone has mental illness, it makes them a worse person, or it makes them someone volatile and things like that. And I think it just adds to the stigma against mental health by saying that Kanye is saying and doing these things because of being bipolar. I know, through my job and also personally, I know people that are bipolar, and I've seen the extremes on, the manic side and depressive side. And for the people that I know personally, it doesn't change what they believe. For instance, someone I know was, had some ideas for, I don't want to say too much without, identifying them, obviously. So, they had some ideas on what they want to do with their life, right? And that was what they wanted to do, even when they were in a stable state. But when they were in a manic episode, they were like, I'm going all in. I'm going to throw all my money into this, and it's going to work out. Nothing can fail. God is with me. Like, it was very extreme. And then it didn't go well. It brought them to a very depressive state. And then it was the opposite of, like, I'm a failure. I can never be good. I'm just no good. I'm not going to say all the words. It wasn't nice. It wasn't good. But again, what they wanted to do, what they believed in a way, what they believed about themselves changed a little bit based on manic or depressive, but what they want to do with their life, their faith, that was the same no matter what. They had a strong belief in God, and that was present, manic, depressive, stable, regardless. So to say that, bipolar is making them think they can succeed, or that, that God is with them, and now they're publicly, like, out in the streets, talking about God. Bipolar, being manic, made them more likely to go do that, but it's not why they believed what they believed. So, long explanation to say, with Kanye, I think he is in a way sharing his beliefs and sharing who he is. He's showing us in a lot of ways who he is, what he believes in, and that is very concerning. It's very alarming. Being so anti-Semitic and racist, it's a scary thing. We know what that can lead to. We've seen it, and hopefully that, I think our systems of checks and balances, and just socially and social media and the news and all that, will keep things in control and keep it from spreading and growing. Yeah. So this all leads to two more things I want to discuss, right? And just to put it, well, I guess the first thing, to kind of round up the discussion on Kanye, is that mental health, mental health isn't an excuse for being a bad person. That's just it. Mental health isn't an excuse to be a bad person. I've seen people excuse their own behaviors. I've seen people excuse loved ones' behaviors based on mental health. Mental health can be, the way I like to put it to people is that mental health can be a reason, but it's never an excuse. I still personally have mental health struggles, and there's days that, I could be running late for work because I just, I'm not diagnosed ADHD, but I definitely have some symptoms of it. Then also some anxiety struggles as well. And to give an example, there was a day I had, like last year, where I had a panic attack right before work. I was supposed to leave, and I had a panic attack. And it's really hard to walk into work and coach kids when you're in that mental state, coming out of a panic attack, let me tell you. And, things like therapy techniques and being in counseling can teach us to manage the symptoms of that. And I fortunately know a lot of ways to manage panic attacks and get that down so I can get back to being in a good state. But, having a panic attack wouldn't have been an excuse for not showing up to work or to show up to work and be a terrible coach to the kids. It would have been the reason for it, but would not have excused it, right? So to be responsible for myself, I, called into work and had someone cover until I can get there. Because I had the tools, I knew that I personally didn't want my mental health struggles to interfere with me being successful, and also didn't want it to hurt or hinder anyone else, right? So I took the responsibility to learn therapeutic techniques, to go to counseling, to get it under, get it on a leash, as I like to say. That way I was able to not let it ruin my life, I guess, to put it plainly, because mental health can do that. But yeah, so, it would be a reason that I was late for work, but it wouldn't excuse me being late for work. So in other ways, in other examples, like I see it in couples I work with where, I used to work with both sides of the coin, where it was, I worked with women and men that were abused by their partner, and I worked with the perpetrators, the people that were abusing their partners. And one thing I would say on both sides is using mental health as an excuse. So using anger issues, like, oh, they were just angry, that's why these things happened. They wouldn't normally do that. They really do love me. They were just angry at the time, and this happened. And both sides could use that excuse, right? And it would help a cycle of abuse continue, because it was continually being used as an excuse. And I've seen that keep people in abusive relationships because of that. To put it in, again, like a phrase, terms like a bipolar thing. When someone is in a manic state, they might do or say things that they wouldn't normally do or say. And I remember a client telling me, like, their partner only thought negative things about them when they were in a manic state, and otherwise things were good. And long story short, turned out that this partner was emotionally using and abusing, manipulating this person. And when they were stable, they were doing the same thing, right? But they were always like, no, it's just, if he's abusing me, it means he's manic, right? And I was like, no, that's not what it means. So yeah, I can go, I have a lot of stories like that, but I'm not going to go into too many more of them. But again, it's just this idea that we can't, if you are someone that has mental health struggles, you need to get help with that. You can't let that be an excuse for poor behavior, for doing things that you and others believe to be wrong, right? We need to go to therapy. We need to get into counseling. We need to get help to learn how to overcome these struggles. And yeah, you won't be perfect after that, but you'll be able to contain and control the symptoms of things. If you are someone that knows someone with mental health struggles, of course, have some compassion and empathy for people that are struggling, but you shouldn't allow mental health to be an excuse for everything. At some point, you do have to sometimes put a foot down. I've worked with a lot of parents of kids that are struggling, and a lot of times they'll let things slide for a long time. It's like, oh, they're depressed, so we can't let them do this or do that, or we're going to try to keep them safe from this and that. Or when they're being not a good person, they're like, oh, well, it's just because of their mental health. And that keeps them from going to therapy. It keeps them from getting on medication. It just leads to a lot of things. But long story short is, again, it's a reason, but it's not an excuse, and no one should let it be that in their life. The second leads to the next segment of today's video, the second point. So let me get that pulled up here and queued up. One moment, please. All right. Well, let's get some things back in the mix. All right. Go. All right. So, the next thing of today is a technique we use in therapy a lot. It kind of feeds into, or is similar to what we're talking about with, how our mental health can kind of steer us different ways. This is one of the techniques we teach people to have more discernment on their decisions and their actions. It comes from something called dialectical behavioral therapy, which is called DBT for short. It started to be used for I'm forgetting the exact thing of what it was for. Oh my gosh, embarrassing. Wow, I should know what that's called. Well, that's embarrassing, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm not perfect either. I'm a therapist. I'm not perfect, I know. I believe your therapists are perfect individuals, but goodness gracious. Yeah, I would say whatever, it doesn't matter, just keep moving on, but I'm one of the person that's like, you gotta know right away. There we go. I remembered it now. I actually didn't see it online. I remembered it from my brain, not from what I just read. Okay, borderline personality disorder. It was developed to use for that mostly, but DBT has been used for everything else as well. It's good for everyone to know and use. So that being said, we're gonna show this here. And it's not showing. Change the settings here. There it is. Boom. All right. So this is the wise mind. Boom. All right. So, the wise mind is a way to take a situation, take something we're thinking or feeling, and try to make the wise decision. The example I always like to give for kids is, to make it make sense, is eating ice cream versus eating vegetables, right? Our feelings are like, I want to eat ice cream. Like, I enjoy ice cream. Ice cream makes me happy. It's just delicious. It's amazing. We all love ice cream, right? And then the rational, logical side is like, no, you should eat vegetables instead, because that's healthy. That's the best thing for you. And the emotional mind can maybe trend towards not doing what's healthiest for us all the time. It's kind of based on what our feelings want and what our emotions want, which are valid, by the way. I think a lot of times when I explain this, people are thinking like one's better than the other. It's not. And then, so feelings can kind of disregard logic, and then the rational side can disregard our feelings, which is bad. Because then we're just robots that don't do anything to be necessarily be happy. We just try to become machines that are perfect, which isn't possible either. But so feeling side says eat ice cream. Logical side says, rational mind says eat vegetables and only vegetables. So the wise mind looks to do is to take both sides and combine them into the wise choice. So I think the wise mind cares about what's doing what's rational, but also cares about our feelings, right? Because those are valid. So it'll say, eat your vegetables, eat your dinner, and then have a little bit of ice cream. So it's about bringing the balance between the two. We see this, some other examples of this in relationships. You'll see where one partner is overly rational about a situation. if I'm being honest, it's more commonly, it can more a lot of times it's the guy in the relationship, right, where they're not validating feelings, they're not even considering the emotional side of it, and typically, let me say this a little bit. Typically, people do have both, but people tend to trend towards one side more than the other. So, guys, men are often taught by society to kind of disregard our feelings, to shut down our feelings. So it's just rationale, and that leads to some whatever. Anyway, so you'll see a lot of couples where the male is being way too rational about something, about doing this or doing that, and typically the female partner is bringing more of the emotions to the table. And again, that's not to say that each side is only capable of that one side. They both have both. But what's presented a lot is kind of in that way, right? And then to learn compromise is that wise mind approach, where we look at having both sides get what do you call it? Well, the benefits of both, right? So I guess let's see if I can use maybe more of a personal example, so I'm not throwing people under the bus or coming across as sexist or anything. It's always where I'm going to do that when I'm giving examples. In therapy, because a lot of times we make short work of things, so sometimes you use generalizations, right, to make sense of things. Anyway, I'm going to dig myself in a hole here, so let me go back. So let me see if anyone's in chat. If you have an example, you can type it in the comments and let me know, and we can go through that. But let's see. A lot of examples I liked using, I think I use with kids a lot. So I'm trying to think of a good adult one to use, because I know a lot of kids are watching right now. It's more adults. So let's see. Okay, we'll do a simple one with work. All right. Emotional side says, I should quit my job. I hate my job. Don't like people I work with. Don't feel good while I'm there or when or after work. Hate, getting ready for work is just a chore, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I have to go to work today. Getting out of bed is hard. Like, I think a lot of us have experienced that kind of job, right? But rational side is like, we need money, right? How else are we going to support ourselves? The job market is bad right now. We're going to find another job. So the best thing to do is keep this job and keep pushing through it. It's kind of the whole facts don't care about your feelings mentality sometimes, which is, don't even get me started. So again, short version of this. Feelings is hating the job, leaving, and all that. Words. Before, during, after work sucks. So it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Rational mind is like, well, we need to keep this job to support ourselves or support a family or anything like that, right? And I think you see how both sides have some truth to them and both sides have some flaws to them, right? So the wise mind choice in this scenario could be something like, keep the job for now, while actively looking for a new one, right? And that would be the wise choice. So it doesn't disregard the feelings. It doesn't say like, I think a lot of people trend towards that, thinking that wise mind means rational mind, and it doesn't. Our feelings are, so much of our experience in the world, so much of our life is about what we're feeling and thinking. And to disregard our feelings is to be a zombie, not to live a full life, in my opinion. I think we have to want to be mindful of our feelings, and also at times make decisions based on our feelings, right? We got to do things that make us happy, do things that make us feel good. We shouldn't just be, again, a robot zombie that's just going through the motions of doing what is the quote unquote best thing, sometimes the most rational, logical thing. That doesn't lead to a happy life. So it's, I think we all have this experience on like something like Black Friday, which, we just went through. You want to buy that thing. There's a few things that I put to my cart but had to take out. But the wise mind choice for me was making a budget and not going past it, right? So there's things I wanted to buy because I knew I really liked them, really wanted them. They've been on my wish list for a while. Rational mind was like, don't just save all your money, Josh. Like, don't buy anything at all. You don't need anything. And emotional Ryan, more feelings mind was like, ooh, this would be nice to have. It would make you feel good. I just bought these pajamas actually that have like not fur on the inside, but they're like fuzzy. Oh, they're so warm and amazing. So those make me feel happy, right? Rational mind said, no, don't buy them. You don't need those. You got other pajama pants you can wear that get the job done. But I was like, yeah, but I'd also like to be comfortable and warm. So wise mind choice was, okay, you can buy something new, but only spend this much. So we're not breaking the bank. If I bought everything I added to my cart, it'd be bad. But again, that's just another example of kind of this wise mind thing, right? Where your feelings are taking one way, logic's taking another way. So you find kind of that middle ground and bring them together. How this works in something more like relationships again. So this started with something like borderline personality disorder, which can lead to very extremes within social things, relationships, where choose an example. And again, it could be a guy or a girl. It's not just, a lot of times I think this is another diagnosis that a lot of people just equate with women, but males can go through the same thing. I've seen it. So with borderline, it could be like, okay, when things are going well in a relationship, oh my gosh, this is the person I'm going to spend my rest of my life with. We're so in love, everything's perfect. And when something goes wrong, it's like, it's varying extremes, but it's be like, oh my God, we need to break up, or like they're breaking up with me, they don't love me anymore. A lot of times it leads to things like, self-harm or self-injurious thoughts, suicidal ideations even. Like the world's ending if, when something goes wrong. It's unfortunately, borderline something unfortunately that I think has, it has a lot of stigma. I shouldn't say I think it does. It does have a lot of stigma attached to it. But it can be managed successfully, very successfully, with something like wise mind, where the feelings are saying like, okay, this relationship is perfect, this is the man of my dreams, woman of my dreams. So you have to kind of, okay, that's the feelings, and the rational side is, we've only known each other for this long. We shouldn't get married until we've known each other for X amount of months and they've met my family, and like those kind of things, right? So you kind of find that balance. Wise mind is like, yeah, okay, this is a good thing we have right now, but let's not jump the gun and go get married right now. Or when things are going wrong, it's like, this feels like the end of the world, it feels like the end of the relationship. And then you kind of balance that with like you've been through this kind of thing before with your partner, and it doesn't mean it's the end, right? You guys can work through this through communication, through therapy, whatever it is. So though it does feel bad, you don't want to invalidate the feelings, right? It feels bad to be going through a hard time with a partner. It's a fact. But yeah, so you kind of find that balance between the feelings and accepting the feelings, acknowledging the feelings, and using rational, logical solutions to those feelings. All right. So again, it's that going to therapy, it's improving communication, things like that, right? So wise mind is something I use every day. As an example, working with kids isn't always easy. I'm sure I'm not going to say that coaching is on the same level as teaching, like at a school. But it can be some similar things dealing with the various, all the different individuals in one room, while you're trying to educate and teach something, right? And sometimes emotions can come in pretty strong, and whether it be the kids are doing or saying something. Like, for instance, I'll give an example from recent. Like, some kids were being very disrespectful, and I was getting angry, and I was like, oh, like, I wanted to just like tell them to go sit out, tell them to get out of the gym. I'll call your mom, they can come pick you up early, right? But those are like the strong feelings I was feeling. But then the rational side was also like, okay, but my role is to be an educator and teacher, and to have a healthy discussion on these things and find solutions, right? So though I was having some very, very strong feelings, I was able to also couple that with reminding myself what my role is and what my purpose is, and use effective communication with the kids to say, like, hey, like, what you're doing is strongly affecting your coaches. And I didn't say it this way, but basically we're humans too. All right, we have feelings too, and what you're doing is, it hurts sometimes, right? Being disrespected, right? So after a conversation, we talked about the feelings, talked about expectations, talked about rules, talked about consequences, and was able to kind of have that balance of using logical, rational solutions and all that, but also addressing the feelings that I had and also that they had too, addressing the reasons for their behavior. So again, that's just the wise mind approach, and it can be used in a lot of different things, but I think it's important that everyone kind of has that. A lot of times, again, to just generalize, I know everyone is different and on a spectrum of different things. A lot of times in therapy, is bringing the guys to validate and address their emotional mind. A lot of times with female clients, it's more going for that, balancing the rational mind. And in couples, it kind of gets even more complicated. You're taking both sides of both and bringing those together. But I think it's really important to look at situations like this, again, be it with someone else in your life or just for yourself, and learn how to make the wise mind choice, make the wise mind decision, where you are validating your emotions, and then also, using rational, logical things as well. It's one of my favorite things, and I use it with every single client. I think we talk about wise mind, and if you didn't watch last episode, putting thoughts on trial is probably like my top two go-tos, especially early on in therapy. Next week I'll have another one. It's like my rounding out my top three. But so it's really important to use this one. I think everyone should learn this one, use it all the time. That ends that segment of the show. I think I call it like the therapy couch or something like that. I want to always make sure every episode we're kind of learning some new therapy strategies and techniques. To go in a little bit of a personal story for myself, I started going through my own mental health struggles. The more I learned, the more I realized there were signs earlier, but it all came to a head in high school and first years of college. And for I think 2 or 3 years, I didn't tell anyone about what I was going through, what I was dealing with, mainly depression and anxiety, some OCD in there as well. When I say some OCD, that's not, it was more than some, but all things that I've learned to live with and cope with and overcome, thankfully. But I didn't go to therapy for a very long time. But I was able to, because I was in school, especially when I got to college, I was majoring in psychology and had access to all the research, had access to all the therapy strategies people use, all the techniques people use. And I, at the time, wrongfully told myself I didn't need therapy. But the moral of the story, though, the good side of the story, is that I was able to learn and use some of these techniques, and implement them in my life, and I saw like a vast improvement. And I know that not everyone can afford therapy. I know that not everyone has a schedule to make it work all the time. Maybe you have young kids at home, and you can't just drop them off somewhere, and things like that. There's a lot of reasons people can't get into therapy even if they want to be. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this show, why I'm making this YouTube channel, why I will start putting out eventually in the future more content that isn't just live streams, is because I want people to have access to some of the things that are often behind this insurance paywall to get to. And yeah, I don't know. I think I hate the idea that there's people I can't work with simply because they can't afford it, or simply because they don't have the time, or just all these random things, or their parents don't believe in therapy, or all these things I've seen and heard and experienced. And I think that everyone should have access to therapeutic techniques, to therapeutic strategies, to having a place to talk about. Let me get back into the right scene here. Everyone should have a place to talk about mental health openly and with a person or people that understand it, don't judge it. Where there's stigma is gone, there's no negative biases against against being having mental health issues. I'm not even gonna say having mental illness, just struggling at all with anxiety, with grief, with the depressive symptoms, even if you're not diagnosed with something or have all the meet all the check boxes to be diagnosed with something, doesn't mean you don't deal with depression or deal with anxiety symptoms. So I think it's really important that we all learn these things, learn how to manage them. For parents, knowing how to do it for themselves, also being able to teach their kids at a young age how to do these things. For a college student that's alone in their dorm without access to some of the stuff, they could have places to learn these things. People that can't afford therapy, that they can still get access to the same knowledge that people that have the money to can. So anyway, that's kind of a side tangent on why I'm doing this show and why I'm passionate about this stuff. And yeah, it's the stuff I needed when I was younger, and I was lucky enough to have access to a lot of it because of school. And I think about where I would have been if I didn't have that. As someone that was suffering in silence, if I didn't have access to something that would show me things can get better, right? Like I'm rational mind through and through, to a fault at times. So when I saw statistics that said, this thing worked this percentage for this percentage of people, it was like, oh, so like, okay, scientifically, I'm not stuck, right? Like, because part of depression was believing I was stuck this way, and being able to see like science say, no, you're not stuck. That if you go through these steps, go through these processes, you can get better. Things can get better. So like, yeah, the most nerdy way possible is just reading research articles for fun at 3 a.m. But like, yeah, a lot of people don't have someone to say to them that things can get better, that you're not stuck, and that there's solutions and there's hope. Hope is something that is hard to find, hard to have a lot of times, especially in just this crazy world we live in. So yeah, I want to be someone that can help share that with people. But anyway, we should get to the last subject of today. So lessons from a bubbly can. Where I put these. So this is one of my favorites. It happened pretty organically in session, and it was one of my favorite things. So let's see here. There we go. All right. I was wrapping up my night last night. I was wrapping up my night last night and preparing for this, and I realized I didn't have any bubbly. So it was like 10:30 p.m. I went and got some bubbly. Oh gosh, I can't say bubbly without being like bubbly. Anyway, so let's see here. Like having some background tunes. So hold on. I think it's Arkin. There we go. All right. Let me know if any of that background music is too loud. All right, that should be good. All right, so lessons from bubbly cans. Let's get to it. So if you are looking at this can of bubbly, there's a label. All right. If I were to ask you, where is actually, I still don't even know what to call it. The hole on top that you drink out of. The spout, maybe? No, not a spout. That's not right. I don't know what the right word would be. The hole you drink out of is, based on the label, right? You would probably think it's right. It's going to be directly in the center there, right? But it's not. Look at this next one, right? You have the can, you have the bubbly. Where's the hole? Not where people think it is. And yeah, so sorry, very distractible today. So if you look at the can, you're gonna think that the label should be right on top of the the hole should be right on top of the label. And I remember the first time I noticed that. I have a weird brain, and these things throw me into existential crises. So I was wondering, like, why would they do this? Like, what in the production line causes this to put the label in a random spot? Like, who thought this is okay? Who approved this? Do all soda cans have these flaws? Is all of existence flawed? What is life? And anyway, that's kind of where my mind went. But yeah, there's kind of two options here, right? Let the can bother you in perpetuity, where every time you see it, it's like, why is it there? Or you accept it and you enjoy your bubbly. So to you, where this came up in therapy in session, I had a client who was dealing with, he was having trouble with their family members. Their family was often not responding to them the way they felt their family should. The client would continue some of the same behaviors, some of the same word and communication styles, and hope that the family would finally see and hear them differently. But it never did. And every week we kind of go through this process repeating, like, dad does this, dad says that, mom does this, mom says that, sibling says it does this, and it was the same thing every week. So I started talking about their expectations, and I had these two cans of bubbly. It was actually like, I can't remember, it was the same day or the day after I had my own crisis with the bubbly can. So I was like, I have something for this. We didn't figure out what the name of the drinking hole is, and I feel it just sounds wrong. Like, what is that hole called anyway? Sorry, it still bothers me, and I can't stop thinking about it. What is it called? Sorry. So I held up the cans with the labels facing them, and, like, looking at these two bubbly cans, where is the hole? And just like these, it turns out they were on like two opposite sides. They were not where you'd expect them to be. After helping them through their own existential crisis over the production line of soda cans, also it's soda, not pop. We talked about it more, and I related that to their family. They had a aha moment, as I like to say, because aha is great. Is that they were expecting their family to be, how should I say, a lot of their turmoil with their family was based on expectations not being met. And one thing that comes up a lot in therapy is changing expectations, not lowering expectations, but changing them to be more realistic. So they were struggling a lot because they were expecting their family to be who they thought they should be instead of accepting and expecting them to be who they are, right? I like to say, every human is their own unique can of sparkling water. Some are bubbly, some are aha, some are LaCroix, some are bougie, and they're the San Pellegrinos and the Perriers and all that. My favorite is Spindrift, they got that real fruit in them. Wow, that sounded like something. Anyway, but it's so good. But we have people there's all these different types of cans, all these different types of waters, all these different types of beings that bring something different to the table. And if we go into things expecting people to be a certain way, kind of to fit our ideal form, it's going to cause a lot of turmoil for ourselves and also in our relationships, right? And just like we would with something like bubbly water, we have to be able to accept what it is, and we get to make the decision off that, if we want to have that person in our lives more, or accept them and work on things and keep them in our lives, or remove them from our lives. In my client's case, it was this is who my dad is. So he's been for the last 50 years of his life. It's crazy for me to think that just, overnight he's going to see things my way and agree with me. I won't give details, but in the case, the client was kind of right, and the dad was being very old fashioned on something. So that solution was to, one, stop having these conversations with their dad. It was kind of pointless. Their mom was in a different spot, somewhere caught in the middle, and they ended up coming to a middle ground with each other. But it's because they both let their guards down and were able to see the other person's side and appreciate the other person's side, even if they didn't fully agree. They were able to accept. But again, we often come across people and we expect them to be a certain thing. If they don't meet those expectations, we struggle, and we either try to change them or we just cause them other problems. But life and people are much easier to accept, and much easier to drink down if we accept ourselves and we accept them and withhold judgment. Everyone's production line is different, right? I actually found what company was it? I think it was Aha's. There's one company of bubbly water that sparkling water, whatever it's actually called, where based on the label, the hole is actually where it quote unquote should be. So I'd imagine their production line is different, right? I'm guessing with something like Bubly, the thing just rolls down the line, and it's just wherever it goes, the label gets slapped on it. And just like that, we all have different production lines in our lives based on our upbringings, right? Our nature and nurture. And because we come from different production lines, we're going to be different. And we can try to say everyone should be exactly like us, but we expect people that have the same production as us to be like us. But we shouldn't expect people that did not come from where we came from. The same beliefs, the same parents, the same friends, family, society, culture, suburb or city, or rural place. Everyone's gonna be different, based on where they came from. And it's gonna be people that go down smoother. There's gonna be flavors that go down smoother. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But no one you shouldn't expect people to be what you want. I think we can probably, draw political undertones from this and all these things, but more on the personal, again, mental health side of things. We cause ourselves a lot of turmoil based on wanting people to be something different than they are. And instead of learning to work with who that person is, we try to change them. Sometimes we try to change ourselves to fit into someone else's beliefs. And the healthiest thing is to accept ourselves, accept others for who they are. And if we can work with it, we work with it. If we can't, then we can't. We got to set those boundaries and make changes. But having variety and diversity are good. Good for the economy and good for us and good for our lives, good for our health. So in the comments, you should let me know what your favorite brand of sparkling water is, and I will tell you what that says about you. I think I'm gonna make a personality test based on sparkling waters. I probably won't, but that's probably, it's a great idea. Someone could take it. Go ahead. Let's see here, anyway, yeah. So sorry, I thought I had a more fancy wrap up to that topic, but I don't. So today, I think it looks like our session time is coming up to a close here. As is typical in therapy, I go past my hour all too often if I don't have something immediately following or another client right afterwards. So did that today, but whatever, it happens in therapy too. We talked about Kanye, yay. And we talked about bipolar, and talked about how mental health can be a reason for certain things, but never an excuse for it. In this case, it isn't the reason. Mental health isn't the reason Kanye believes what he believes. It might be the reason he's saying what he believes, but it is not the reason he does believe what he believes. His mental health isn't the direct cause of being anti-Semitic or racist. He's anti-Semitic and racist. That's what it is. It's not because he's bipolar. Bipolar might be why he's saying it, but that's it bothers me so much just thinking about it sometimes. I think I'm holding back a lot of things right now. But the takeaway I want everyone to take away, though, is just that don't blame mental health in us that have mental illness. The stigma that comes along with having mental illness is strong, and people saying Kanye saying what he's saying because of bipolar does harm as well. So keep that in mind. Talk about the wise mind, being able to look at a situation, acknowledge and address our feelings, as well as the logical, rational things as well, and make a decision based on both, because our feelings are important, and also making smart choices is important, and usually neither one side is the best, but together they make up the best solution. So take that wise mind approach, use it. The lesson from the Bubly can is to accept things that are not exactly how we want them to be or how we think they should be. And we could either choose to continue that in our lives with different expectations, or we choose to remove that from our lives or set strong boundaries with that. And again, Bubly's good. Anyway, I don't ruin any brain deals, I'm not going to talk about companies too much, but learn to accept people and learn to accept yourself for what your production line produced, and make the most of it and make changes where need to be changed, but also accept and love what is there and what your production line produced. All that being said, I think that is the end of this session. Thank you for checking this out, tuning in. Yeah. And hoping to go live every Monday. So hopefully you'll join me for the next one. Let me know on social media new topics you want me to cover, from a mental health perspective, from a licensed therapist perspective, things you want strategies for. I look forward to doing these. I think today was technically a lot better. I didn't have to restart the stream 3 times, and I think the video and audio is okay. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Take care of yourself.